You are listening to the Lucha Central Podcast Network. And now, Lucha Central Weekly. Hello and welcome to the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast. This is the podcast that lets you know all of the latest happening in the world of Lucha Libre. Each week, our team discusses news and events from the past week, as well as previewing the week ahead, covering Mexico-based promotions and top independents, along with luchador-related news from throughout the United States. The Lucha Central Weekly Podcast is part of the Lucha Central Podcast Network on luchacentral.com. Podcasts from the Lucha Central Podcast Network are available on all major podcast platforms, including iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Podbay, and Speaker. My name is Miranda Morales, and I'm one of the co-hosts of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast, but this is a team, yes, T-E-A-M, team effort. So I'm going to bring in my fantastic co-host. Introducing first, he is the dashing one, Mr. Dusty Murphy. Dusty, how's it going today?
It's going great. How's it going for you, Miranda?
It's going well. You know, we just had this whole conversation about, exercises and things for our lungs. And as I was doing that intro, I was trying not to cough. So I don't know what happened.
We jinxed you.
Someone jinxed me. But I'm not blaming you. However, we literally was just talking about this and now I need to take a second.
It happens to the best of us. Everybody needs a second now and then.
Everybody needs a second.
Consider your favorite luchador and give yourself a second while she
We need to make that a thing. That's just going to be a moment on the show. Whenever we need a moment, everyone's just like, think of your favorite lucha mask. Take a second. Or think of your favorite luchador or luchadora. Think about your favorite lucha match or your favorite whatever it is.
There you go.
But also joining us is who?
Who?
It is the one and only Brendan Barr. Brendan.
Hey.
How's it going?
Hey. I'm doing good now that we're going. I was fending off the coughing earlier, so it's probably my fault. But, we're here. We're doing it. There may be coughing in the background once in a while.
I'll make sure to try and put my volume off. I mean, if it's one thing or another in my household, whether it's my coughing or my dogs. Usually they're very opinionated about Lucha Libre. They're okay right now, but I feel like they may chime in on some topics that we're going to be talking about today.
They always have opinions. It's true.
They always do. I mean, and with that, we got a very stacked episode of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast. Of course, we have all of your regular favorite segments. However, news from left and right, some news breaking today, some news throughout the week, and things for you to remember and preview for next week. Literally, we have the gambit covered for you. So we're just going to jump right into it because we got a lot to cover. Brendan's going to start us off with the road back to shows.
All right. So we're going to start with the usual message. Mexico City is still orange. I have some notes here that I will be referring to later in the show because this particular day will impact the potential date for Triple Mania, but we will be talking about that and a AAA segment later in the show. So I just remember Mexico City is still orange. I'm sure nobody has ever forgotten that.
I was ready for the but. I was like, but
yeah.
There is no but this week. It's just how that impacts things that are going on. I mean, we've got we've got some shows are running at 30% capacity, and some shows are not. And I don't know how they're determining who does that. So like CMLL, when they were running completely fanless, and the bars and clubs seem to still have that 30%, although they're spiking up on COVID cases, just like Washington here. So they may go back to lockdown, just like we're talking about doing, for all I know. But none of that's been announced yet. Just that we've got 2 more weeks of being orange before we start even thinking about being yellow in Mexico City. In other COVID-related news, DTU recently ran a show that it's not proven. Nobody has drawn the line between these two things, but it seems highly likely that in the aftermath of the show that they ran in a bar, that bar was then closed down for COVID-related reasons. The citation does not, it says a Lucha Libre show, does not clearly call out DTU, but it does, there's a lot of matching shots between DTU promo shots and the bar shots, so probably.
Yeah, I heard a lot of rumors about it on social media, that it was a paid DTU show for Halloween. Right. And so it wasn't actually their promotion. They just paid them to show up with guys in a ring and everything. And I don't understand quite how that works, but it's technically not a DTU promotion. It was a private promotion put on by the bar.
Yeah, so in the world of licensing up here, a promotion is whoever's paying for the venue as well as doing all the advertising. So if DTU is just getting a paycheck to show up, and the bar is doing all the promoting and they paid for all the talent to be there, then it's completely on the bar for any of the other aftermath of it. Like, according to the rumors, nobody was wearing masks in any of the pictures of this event. So, if that becomes a super spreader event, that's more on the bar than it is on DTU, although they really should be sticking to tighter regulations with their talent too, if they want to keep doing shows. It's an interesting story, but yeah, it doesn't sound like DTU's being held at any higher accountability than the bar or than other promotions, and they've already had their little scrape. So hopefully they start getting ahead of this and start really coming up with some ideas on ways to do lots of good social distancing shows, because it seems like a lot of Mexico is adapting to that quite well, between like auto luchas and
they
shows
are
in the middle of nowhere.
Luchas.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In other rumors, I have the Voices of Wrestling podcast, who has a pretty decent reliability record, has reported that Dragon Lee went to Japan, probably for the Best of Super Juniors. He started the quarantine process, but then in the middle of that returned to Mexico. So there's nothing substantial as to why that would be. Everybody is, of course, speculating it was probably COVID. But it's a question of whether, like, he tested positive, or if someone back home needed help or something on that. There's any number of things that could have happened. What the most likely means is that he won't be on the New Japan shows, because he hasn't finished quarantine. So he might still be able to do ROH tapings and promotions in Mexico, but because he hasn't finished that quarantine in Japan, we're probably not going to see him on any of those cards if he has been announced.
It's my understanding that his uncle Cesar Munoz passed away today as we record this. He wrestled Septembre Negro Jr. and Pitbull too, and he was the brother of Bestia del Ring, and then the uncle of Rush and Dragon Lee and Mystico too. So that could have been part of the whole thing too.
That is
lost an
yeah.
uncle today, so it's very sad.
That is kind of what I was alluding to with maybe he just had to go back for family reasons. I was unaware of the passing, but I knew that I'd heard rumors that someone in the family might have been sick. So it's good, interesting to know, and that kind of rounds that story out. Like I say, hopefully that means that when the dust on any of this settles, we'll see Dragon Lee or Roosh at more events in the near future. It sounds like they were getting things worked out, and hopefully this isn't too big of a setback for them.
Yeah, love to see them back.
Right. In other hopeful news for this post-COVID era of wrestling, another Lucha Libre promotion has resurfaced. The Crash started making posts on Facebook again. So they haven't really said that they're going to do any shows or anything yet, but they're starting to actually make posts and be active online, which hasn't been the case for a while. So that usually is the start of something. So I'm keeping my eyes on that. They've had a lot of their talent show up in other places, so it'll be very interesting if they do try and run shows to see who actually shows up at this point, because they've been very radio silent for a very long time. Even kind of pre-COVID, they weren't really doing a lot of shows. And then the last story I have today is that we've got a few more shows coming up. They're going to be on the Mas Lucha Premium YouTube channel, which is making me wonder why I'm spending $9 a month for the Mas Lucha streaming service that hasn't really updated much, and when I could just be spending $8 on the premium YouTube channel, which seems to get all the content. They had the Castillo de Terra recently, but the next Vanguardia event is going to be there, as well as Lucha Libre Boom will be uploading their Halloween event that they recently filmed onto the channel. So, cool. Right? I mean, I'm going to debate this week, but I think I'm probably going to cancel one subscription and go for the other subscription. So.
If you're not getting one subscription,
you got to get that variety. Variety's the spice of life. You get a little bit here, see all there is to offer, then you go over there. You get Netflix for a while, you cancel, you go to Hulu, you watch all that good stuff, you go back to Netflix. It's how people are now. 2020, baby.
But these are both Mas Lucha. It's two versions of the same thing. I should be able to see anything on either of them, on whichever one that I'm subscribed to, and that's just not how it's happening.
Not how this works, but apparently that's how this works.
I'd even be okay if there was a delay, like thing on the YouTube channel came out a few weeks later, but no, it seems like, because I've been checking on the app, and they don't seem to be adding any of that stuff later. So that's if I keep seeing more announcements for the YouTube channel and nothing for the service, that I'm going to make the switch this week. So there's your suspense for this week or not this week in Lucha, but Road Back to Shows. Next week we can find out which service that Brendan actually decided to keep paying for.
The suspense.
The anticipation.
That is my Road Back to Shows. As I alluded to, we will have more stuff on AAA later in the show, so if you're tuning in to find out the saga of AAA, you're going to have to stick around till much later in the show.
Yeah. But what they can anticipate right now is some indie roundup.
Heck yeah. So, Also on the Mass Lucha channel was another IWRG event. I did not get to see this. I have seen highlights of some of the matches. So I'll just try and run down the undercard real quick here. We had Blue Monster Jr., Dambia, Torito, and Yin Dragon against Aikima, Dark Panther, Death Dragon, and Power Kid. And Blue Monster Jr., Dambia, Torito, and Yin Dragon won that one. There was not really a lot of highlights of that one, so I don't know. I'm expecting that this was another fast-paced, high-flyer one, because based on the names, but who knows? Hijo del Abrije, Miss Delicious, Asesino, wow, I should have pre-read some of these names better. Asesino Pirano, so Hijo del Abrije, Miss Delicious, and Miss Delicious against Asesino Pirano and Tyra Fly, and then also Effecto and Lady Lee. So Hijo del Abrije and Miss Delicious wound up on top on that one. IWRG's ladies and mixed division is pretty good. I recognize a bunch of these names. Again, I didn't get to see a lot of highlights because the undercard was not very well covered on the YouTube highlights yet. They tend to be about a week behind or so, unfortunately. Next match we had Arandu and Iron Kid against Mike Segura and Tromba. And another Arandu and Iron Kid came out on top. I don't have really any exciting things to say. I'm sorry. Just gonna just plow right ahead. Mr. Leo and Teramoto. Mr. Leo against Teramoto, Impulso, Fulgor, Corsario Negro, Belial, Yoruba, and Mr. Lee came out on top on that. This is a multi-man match. I saw there was lots of brawling and high flying in that one. Just in the like 2 minutes that I saw. So then the next one, Apollo Estrada Jr., Flystar, there it was, Toxin. So Apollo Estrada Jr., Flystar, and Toxin against Corazon de Barrio, Devo, and Silencio. And then there was some last minute replacements in there. Flystar and Apollo Estrada replaced Dragonbane and Hijo de Canis Lupus, who I believe that was an injury that pulled Hijo de Canis Lupus out of there. It might have been a sickness, but that it was harder for me to find. I just saw that they were replaced last second. So Apollo Estrada Jr. and Flystar and Toxin came out on top of that, and I've seen a lot of these guys. That one looked like it was going to be a really fun match, and I am very much looking forward to seeing it. Next match we had Demonio Infernal and Fresario Jr. against Jesse Ventura and Passion Crystal. And I've seen a lot of these four people on IWRG shows in the last few weeks. Any combination that you get with kind of this mid to upper card seems to be really good, and this was no exception here. Demonio Infernal and Fresario Jr. came out on top of this one. And then I'm gonna say a name, try not to giggle here. So Aries and Steve Payne took on Dinamico and Mecha Wolf. I told you not to giggle.
But okay, so what if a smile? Like what I mean
That's not gonna throw my pacing off, but I knew if I said a certain name that is infamous amongst people on the show, I'm not gonna throw any shade at people. But
I only giggled because I was trying to close my wallet and giggled as a distraction.
Okay. That's fair. So, Dynamico and Mecha Wolf came up a little short on this one. Aries and Steve Payne wound up winning. So that is your IWRG event. It again looked really good. We have coverage of that on the luchacentral.com. That is where I got my results from, even though I didn't have a lot of highlights yet. I will work on that for future shows. We also had another episode of Lucha Time on YouTube, so I'm gonna dive into that because this one was a lot of fun this week. First match we had Legendario and Hermes Jr. against Camilo Muerte and Hijo del Enfermo. And this is four young guys kind of working on TV. It's a lot like an episode of AEW Dark. There's a lot of good stuff. There's some not so good stuff. This one had a unusual to me ending where you had one of the guys whipped into the rope, and the guy that whipped him put his head down like he was going to do a back body drop and got destroyered out of it. So, I believe that was, Hermes Jr. hit the destroyer. I have my notes are destroyer out of nowhere for the Randy Orton reference. It was fairly exciting finish for a pretty good match. Then next we had Epidemus and Ricky Marvin. So I was, already a little more jazzed on this because they've been using these big names to help make their local talent look really good, and that's kind of what we got a lot of here. Epidemus, for the start of the match, they stayed in the middle, which again, for people who watched Ricky Marvin in AAA, that's kind of weird. But they stayed in the middle. It wasn't until Epidemus actually fell out of the ring that things spilled to the outside, and they brawled for a little bit. They managed to get back into the middle of the ring. Epidemus started to get a little bit of offense going. He hit a lot of really good looking power moves. He had a little bit of chain wrestling going on. They kind of swapped back and forth for a little bit there, where Ricky would kind of take control. And then Epidemus would counter it with like a big power move. So it was kind of the story of the wily old vet would do dirty tricks to take over against the kind of more spry young kid who really wanted to just muscle his way through this. So like a lot of the time when Ricky was able to take control, he was using dirty tricks like holding onto the ref or pulling the ref into the way, that sort of thing. And so after Epidemus actually hit what I'm assuming is his finisher a couple of times, neither of those actually managed to pull it off. Ricky finally hits a very deep leg lock, and that's what we got the finish off of. It was a very fun match, and it makes me more excited to see more Epidemus matches. So I feel like they did their job here. And then, if people have been paying attention to me talking about Lucha Time, you will recognize that for weeks now, VIP and Mafioso have been doing stuff. They've been in tag team matches on the same team where they would beat each other up instead of beating up the opponents. They've been on opposite sides of tag teams. We finally got them in a singles match. I mean, this is what you want kind of for a payoff on a feud. They didn't do a lot of technical moves. They brawled a lot. They went outside. There was some flying off the top rope, but I mean, mostly it was two big guys trying to, physically dominate each other. At the end, VIP was on the top rope. He wasn't able to finish a move. And Mafioso caught him, kind of turned it into a power move bomb that it's very hard for me to describe. He basically just held the VIP by the neck and kind of spun him around, and he landed flat, and then immediately went into another pretty deep leg lock, and that was the the finish of that one. But we weren't done seeing those two, because in the main event you had a few tag teams. You had La Diferencia, which is Ryder Dynamic and Acantus. You had Mafioso's crew of Bomba and Granada. And you had the hardcore crew, which is Sick Boy and Medico Brujo, all in the ring. And VIP and Mafioso came back out for this match. And I didn't know what I was expecting, but what I got definitely wasn't that. Is they didn't take very long for it to turn into a brawl, and once all 6 of or actually all 8 or 9 of the guys were in the ring, the locker room cleared out. And so you had like 20, 30 guys in the middle of the ring just brawling with each other. And then eventually you had 2 authority figures come out. They kind of were able to split everybody into like 2 groups. They kind of cut a couple of promos that I really couldn't make out very well, because the sound on the computer I was watching on was not good. So, and my Spanish, as I well established, not good. So, then whatever they said just aggravated both sides, and they brawled some more, and finally one side left and the other side kind of lingered around ringside, and we rolled the credits. So nobody won that last match. We just had a massive, very exciting brawl. And when I say everybody, I mean like the only person I didn't specifically see was either of the Zorros, but I saw everybody else. I saw their ladies division. I saw the Mummy. Anybody who's been on the show for the last few weeks came out. Black Magic.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very exciting to watch. So, I am really into what Lucha Time's been able to pull out of a pretty small locker room in this period of time, and really make an interesting show every week. So I'm going to keep watching Lucha Time, and eventually they're going to do their 2021 plans, and I might even make it to one of their shows. Like if they're going to a city that's not going to be deadly for me to travel to, I will probably go see them live, just because at this point they're doing some good things that I really want to check out.
He's so cool.
That's what I've got. I focused a little more on the Lucha Time this week, because I thought all of the matches were really good, and we looked like we were going to have a little more time. But I will remind people again, Indie Roundup is for any indie show. So if you wanna send links, or if you wanna drop me a note and invite me to come by to something, I would be more than happy to go. I'll take notes, and if it's something that I can put on the show, I will happily put it on the show. I'd love to have lots of real strong representation of indie lucha from all over the world.
That's great. Thank you, Brendan, for both the road back to shows and the indie roundup. And well, next we have Denise Salcedo, who brings us this week's Lucha Central. Denise, take it away.
Why should you visit thechairshot.com? Thechairshot.com is your home for hard-hitting reviews, news, opinion, and analysis with attitude. Why? Because you're smarter than the average fan. Thechairshot.com. Always use your head.
Hey everyone, it's Denise Salcedo here in Lucha Central with a reminder of where and when to catch all of the great network content this week. Get the full lineup and listen to all of our shows in the podcast network section of luchacentral.com. On Tuesdays, Mats, and Mayhem takes you inside the world of Lucha Underground as they take you weekly through the series with the benefit of hindsight and the benefit of special guests from the groundbreaking series. Check out the premiere video stream every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern on the Lucha Central YouTube channel and at luchacentral.com. Then listen to it on your favorite podcast platform every Wednesday. Tuesday nights live, it's Wrestle Boss, where Fabi Chulo talks MMA and pro wrestling with special guests and listener call-ins. Visit WrestleBossLive.com Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific to listen live or call in with questions or download the show on podcast platforms on Wednesdays. Wednesday nights live on Facebook, it's Spanish show La Mesa de los Márgaros, giving you both the news and the chisme from around the lucha world. Special guests and a whole lot of fun make it one of the most talked about shows in Mexico. Thursdays, it's Straight Out of the Bodega with Papo Esco and PWR promoter Gabriel Ramirez, as they have guests from throughout the wrestling world pull up to give an inside look into their careers. From indie standouts to television superstars, each week brings a new name and perspective. On Friday, it's your double dose of Lucha Central Weekly podcast, one in English y el otro en español. Lucha Central Weekly is where you'll find all the top stories of the week, both inside and out of the ring from Mexico and anywhere luchadores are in action across the globe. Be sure to subscribe and follow all your favorite Lucha Central Network series on your favorite podcast platforms, either by their own series name or subscribe to the Lucha Central Podcast Network show pages to get all of the shows in one easy feed. And please consider giving a rating to help more fans find the shows that you love. For now, this is Denise Salcedo signing off from Lucha Central Central. Have a great week.
Lucha-Masks.com by Pro Wrestling Revolution, bringing you, in partnership with Mask Republic, the Lucha Brothers, as well as Japanese legend Ultimo Dragon. Go to lucha-masks.com and fight Lucha Strong with masks from your favorite Lucha legends and Pro Wrestling Revolution luchadores. Stay safe in style and represent your favorite luchador. Get yours now at lucha-masks.com, powered by Pro Wrestling Revolution.
As always, a huge thank you to Denise Salcedo, who brings us this week's Lucha Central, letting you know what is happening throughout the Lucha Central Podcast Network. Up next, Dusty, well, you got some WWE news to share with us, specifically what happened this week on SmackDown and Monday Night Raw.
Yeah, the answer is not a whole lot, but we did have a little bit of Lucha content. First up, we had the Survivor Series qualifying match between King Corbin and Rey Mysterio with Dominic at ringside. I have a love-hate combination for King Corbin. I love that he's like one of the most legit badass guys in wrestling. He's a Golden Gloves champion. His NXT run was awesome. But his SmackDown thing, the King character, this is not a match I would have ever asked for. King Corbin against Rey Mysterio. And from the time of the announcement of these Survivor Series team qualifiers, I assumed that Seth and Rey would interfere in each other's matches and either cost each other their spots or to continue their feud, or both end up on the team and continue their feud. One way or the other. But they split the difference. They had Rey lose. They had Seth win his match against Otis. But this match with King Corbin and Rey Mysterio was just not great. It was brought down by interruptions. The pacing was uneven. It never really got to a good rhythm. There was just nothing to feel positive about as a Lucha fan watching this match. Ouch. Yeah. I mean, I realize Rey can't win every week, but him losing here felt like a real misstep. And it's a rare match from Rey Mysterio that wasn't at least pretty good, if not great. Usually when Rey Mysterio, that's a great match, but this match just was a dud for me. It mostly served to set up the storyline for Seth and Aaliyah and Murphy and Rey and Dominic, but it weighed down the match so much you could never get into it. Seth was there, yeah. And then later, Aaliyah and Murphy, they were talking to Seth. Murphy was talking to Seth about the greater good, and Aaliyah, he leaves, and Aaliyah is talking to Murphy, and Murphy says, well, it's about the greater good, and Aaliyah agreed. So the storyline is getting more interesting. We kind of see, we'll tie back to this at the end, but we see some development in the storyline, some interesting things coming. Who knows what'll happen? I've said all along, I've thought Seth was behind this and he and Murphy were still working together, and it looks more and more obvious all the time. We also had Zelina in a match, but, it wasn't anything spectacular for her, but she did get to wrestle on Friday night. Looked great as always.
Yes.
And I'm always excited to see Zelina. I mean, she's one of the best women's wrestlers they have. I just wish they'd let her show it. She was in a triple threat match with Ruby Riott and Natalya. The only thing really interesting about the match was the finish, the sharpshooter into a different submission, and Ruby Riott got the win. Natalya thought she'd already won. It was just kind of an interesting thing, but it didn't set up much for Zelina. You know what I mean? It's just not a...
Yeah. So,
yeah.
I get that, where like they're not building for the person you want. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that on WWE in particular.
She just seems to be there to take the pin, so a lot of these other gals don't have to advance their feud because she's not in a feud right now. Yeah. And it makes her character feel less important because of that. She looked great with Asuka. She kind of had a mini feud there for like a week, and then she got sent to SmackDown. That was over, and then it looked like her and Bianca Belair were going to have a feud. They dropped the ball on that and kind of abandoned it, so we'll see what happens, but SmackDown just wasn't a great experience for me this Friday. On Raw, then, it never really got much better, but we still got to see some luchadors. Angel Garza had a spot where another one where he came out and he said that he was cold-blooded and will do anything to win because he's fighting for every woman in the world. And not only is he fighting for every woman in the world, he's fighting to prove that every other man is worthless. And that what all women deserve is someone who can give them everything that they've ever wanted. Before this, though, he will offer a rose to all of them. And that was the end of the vignette. It was interesting.
Okay, then. I mean, I can get on board with some of the things that he said for sure, but yeah, the fact that it's now this true Lothario, like, all women are, I mean, like, no. Yes, that is indeed true. However... now you're just being greedy, because now you want them all. And I don't know if I can support that.
Yeah, I love Angel's character. I think they're trying to find a way to, kind of make it more of a heel character because he's so lovable that you can't dislike Angel. And, maybe we'll see an interesting thing where he's a face to the women and a heel for the guys. Like we've seen country to country face versus heel, like Bret Hart, if he was in Canada, he's a face. If he's in America, he was a heel. But it would be interesting to see that juxtaposition for Angel, like men versus women.
Yeah. So my thought on watching that was like, it was very much like an 80s style WWF vignette. Like 100%. They were making
it reminded me of Rick Rude.
Yes. Like, it's like Rick Rude, but like also Rick the Model Martel. Like they blended
exactly.
100%.
persona at this point. It feels like it would be Angel Garza.
Yes.
Yeah. And I enjoyed it for that. You're right that it is a little much, but I mean, I always think back to Lex Luger's The Narcissist as a little much, but that was really one of the best acts that he was ever in.
I loved the mirror and everything. Yeah, that was classic. Well, that was what I thought with the first Angel promo, was that he was going to be talking to the mirror.
Right. I think that would be a lot funnier, actually.
I do too. Yeah, like he's in love with himself.
Yeah, because ultimately, like, I could see like he's still Lothario with women, but if the fact that maybe he starts paying more attention to himself than to women, I think would be funnier. But
I do too.
What do we know, right? Everything. That's the answer.
We know all the information that the listeners of this show need to have. That's what we know. That's why they're tuning in.
Source, right? For the information.
Right. Support me on this internet.
Yes.
The internet. They will dramatically, or they won't dramatically. I'm just waiting to see where is the internet. They love us or they hate us, but it's an interesting road. I think the fact that they're still investing in Angel, I think, is the silver lining in all of this, because of that whole. Mm-hmm. That whole series with Andrade and the moments they didn't pull the trigger, and Charlie Caruso and that girl from Demi from The Bachelor and all that kind of stuff. Like, maybe it is better that they're refocusing a little bit on himself, just himself, and we'll see where the
I like
that goes. Yeah.
And I mean, because it's got that 80s vibe to it, it's got like that Bruce Pritchard investment in it. Like, cause he wrote a lot of those things back in the day too. So
we hear a lot
if he's on board, that
they're really high on him backstage. So like, that's a good sign for him. And he got longer for his vignette than Lucha House Party got for their championship.
The championship reign.
Ouch. Then just go roll into it, man. Just
Grand Metalik and Lindsay both became 24/7 champions on Raw this week. There was a 6-way match that just turned into everybody getting to be champion for 10 seconds. Eventually, Lucha House Party got their turn. Metalik becomes champion. But immediately after Metalik wins and holds the title up, Lindsay rolls him up for a pin. So then Lindsay and Metalik argue. R-Truth shows up, gives an attitude adjustment, John Cena style, onto Lindsay, covers him for the pin. They got about maybe 45 seconds combined. It was an astonishing misfire and misuse of I'm going to mention Mascara Dorada later, but this is what he's doing. Like, I'll mention him in the AEW segment. But, and hopefully he's not going to be here forever, because I think that they, maybe the part on AEW was kind of a subtle thing, like a message to him in a way. And also in WWE news, then kind of better news, we've got, well, not better news necessarily, different news. We got news about Rey Mysterio and Conan and the storyline regarding Murphy and Aaliyah. This has basically been done before in Puerto Rico with Conan. And so, like, Rey and Conan are super close, obviously. Rey is deeply involved in the storyline and is kind of the main idea man behind everything. And it came out in multiple media outlets that this was almost exactly like the storyline where Conan was supposed to marry Stacey Colon, only to reveal that he was the one that was actually manipulating the Colon family the entire time. And WWE has been known to do wedding segments that end in controversy. Vince loves crazy weddings. Vince allegedly, really thinks a lot of Aaliyah Mysterio. She didn't want to be a wrestler, even a personality. Vince saw her backstage, was like, we got to get you on camera. And she went on, like, in her clothes, she was hanging out in backstage. She was wearing, like, Louis and Gucci, and Vince just put her on camera, and she instantly, and it kind of took off. At least that's the story. Yeah. And so, I think that, it's interesting. We'll see. I don't want to give away how the Conan storyline ends. If you want to look the whole thing up yourself, you can. But
the wrestling wedding. If people don't know what wrestling wedding is.
Like, what wrestling wedding has ever gone without a hitch? Really, most of them don't even actually finish. And those that finish definitely in shenanigans. So, it is very interesting, the fact that they had that influence from Conan. I think that too is means that the company is pretty high on utilizing those ideas, or just the, like you said, the ones that are crazy enough for Vince to buy in. So, that does leave a little bit of a spoiler for those who, kind of research more in depth about it and all of that. But the fact that they would go through this already with, some people still unsure about this angle, but it seems like it continues to catch on. It still has, the YouTube hits. People are talking about it on social media. And that's what WWE wants. So, taking it up the next notch is, having a wrestling wedding.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. It's been a while since we had a good wedding. I think Laurel Van Ness was the last. I guess we got Who Shot Johnny Bravo.
I was gonna say, but then we about to skip the.
Yeah, we can't forget that. That was more recent, but. Yeah, that was kind of a special thing. It didn't even feel like a wrestling wedding in a way, the way they filmed it. But, yeah, weddings haven't, and WWE, I don't know when the last wedding was. It's been quite a long time. So, for a lot of newer viewers, it could still be fresh and interesting. So, hopefully it kind of, pushes them over. I'm excited to see what comes of it. And for as much as WWE doesn't know what we want, you go from Monday Night Raw to the next night, Tuesday night, you got AEW Dark. AEW knows what we want, and they gave it to us this week. Dark knows what we want, so they started out commentary with the shirtless Ricky Starks. They know that we want Starky Baby. And so they gave it to us.
Stroke Daddy! Always and forever will be Stroke Daddy. Always and forever. Continue. Sorry.
First up, we had Chaos Project defeating TNT. For those who didn't know or don't know, TNT are Devon Dudley's son, Terrell, and Terrence, TNT. They trained at 3D Academy, and I fully expected the tables to come out. Thanks to Dr. Luther's deathmatch history, I was wrong, no tables. This was a real match. Yeah. And Chaos Project were great. They used their teamwork and mesh styles to dominate in a way that we don't often see. And despite TNT's best efforts towards the end and a nice hot tag, they were unable to get the win. Great match. Especially these guys, TNT, have kicked around the Florida Indies for a little while, but haven't done anything big yet. This was their first. And they worked a great match for being their first time on a big stage, first time on a big camera like that. Great match. Look forward to seeing them again.
So
Our next... go ahead.
I want to jump in with two quick things on this one. One, they put over that Serpentico was also one of TNT's trainers, so I really wanted to give, since we talk about him a lot on the show, I wanted to, and then you were talking about the teamwork, and I immediately though flashed to the part where Luther's screaming at him in his Luther voice, Serpentico. And Serpentico's shaking his head that he does not want to go be launched off the top rope. And then it happens anyway. So the teamwork wasn't 100% there because I think Serpentico was feeling a little bruised by the end of that match, but it was great.
It was a great match. And like, I know that a lot of people aren't crazy about Chaos Project. I've heard that from people, at least about, like, they don't get the Dr. Luther thing, but check this match out. It was awesome. I loved it. Our next Lucha match in the show was the Hybrid 2 defeating Adam Priest and Shawn Dean. Like, this was so good. I loved it. I fawned over Angelico especially, but it's always clear I love the TH2. Kazarian is on commentary on this match to push SCU's feud with them, so they're not wrestling each other. The feud's continuing. I love this with Dark. Awesome. So far, the feud's been entirely on Dark. I would love to see it get some attention on Dynamite soon. They're wrestling too beautifully for Dark. Like, Evans hit an insane 450 splash on the outside on Adam Priest during the match, and Helico won with this awesome arm-wrenching submission. Jack Evans ran in, started getting the kicks in at the end of the bell for some heel work. It was awesome. Like, they are firmly Rudo, and I love it. They are doing a great job. Love the Hybrid too. I wish we could see them on Dynamite.
That feud excites me. I feel like at some point they're going to bring it over to Dynamite. They just kind of playing this up a little bit right now.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then our next match was Lucha Bros defeating Ashton Starr and David Ali. And for as much as I would love a solo run for both Penta and Fenix, I do want that. Their tag team work is so fluid and beautiful that it also kind of breaks my heart to see them separated. Hopefully we get to keep seeing them together on Dark. I think that's a little unlikely after what happens on Dynamite, but it was awesome. The Lucha Bros were just dynamic and dominant, and they won with their tag team pile driver. Penta picking up the actual pin. Fantastic. Then our next match was Allen 5 Angels defeating Fuego del Sol. It's exciting to see two men in masks against each other when one is only a masked wrestler and one is a luchador. You know, it's kind of unusual. Yeah. I liked that. This was a fun back and forth, and it was interesting to me how similar the styles were between 5 and Fuego. I mean, they really worked well together.
Yeah.
This match could have gone on twice as long, and it just felt like it went so quick for me. 5 hit the wing snapper to get the pin, and that keeps the momentum rolling for the Dark Order. I can't wait to see what they're going to do. Great match.
Mm-hmm.
Then next up, we had some tag team action. Ivelisse and Diamante defeated Dream Girl, Ellie, and Genocide in their first tag team match on Dark. This was awesome. I loved the gear. We talked a lot about the gear in the presentation. Dream Girl, Ellie, and Genocide looked amazing. Dream Girl, Ellie, I think, had the Frieza from Dragon Ball gear, and Genocide had robot gear. She has a size advantage. She's like 6 feet tall. She looks amazing. But like, you didn't think a new tag team could beat the baddest women's tag team in wrestling.
No,
the World Cup winning tag team.
Yes, with the medals and the cups and all of the awards and all of the matches. So,
but no flowers.
No flowers.
No, they don't need flowers. What do you think this is? A beauty pageant? Nuh-uh. So it's great to see them back in tag action. We've been seeing more of those singles runs for now. That, it's good to see them in action. It still also then lingers, what's next for them, whether it's a tag team, whether I would love to see them get into a more of a proper tag team feud now that we've seen them do those individual runs with Thunder Rosa. I think now that they seem to be out of the NWA title picture, bring them back into the fold with a some tag team program. I have thoughts. We'll continue on with this. I mean, we all kind of know some ladies on the roster that I think would be great for that, but
I would honestly love to see them wrestle Dream Girl, Ellie, and Genocide again too. The chemistry between these 4 women was really electric, and I wouldn't mind a feud to help kind of build up Dream Girl, Ellie, and Genocide. I think that would be great for them, and I would love to see this. Anybody tag team. I love tag team wrestling.
Visual of having Diamante squaring off against Genocide was fantastic.
Like, oh my gosh, they look so good. I'd like David and Goliath stuff, but
yet that little girl is going to be the one that just that little woman
destroy her. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, I'm not even going to use the she'll hurt me over the internet if she hears it.
And then we had our main event for the night, Sonny Kiss and Joey Janela against Jurassic Express. This was an awesome main event. Like, I really enjoyed it. I love Jungle Boy, love Luchasaurus, love everybody involved. It wasn't quite the match I expected from these guys. Sonny Kiss and Joey Janela have really come together as a tag team. They've developed a nice rhythm and chemistry, but this still kind of wasn't the match I expected, but it was still tremendous. Jungle Boy hit an insane destroyer on Janela on the outside, and they hit a double team choke slam spin into a power bomb on Janela for the finish. It was awesome. Like, you've got to see that finishing move. It was crazy.
It's surprising me that the Express are really turning into like a premier tag team with all the really, they've got the big tag team moves. They've got all the cool double teams. They're coming up with something new every week for that stuff. Like, I want to see more of them in the tag team division.
Oh, me too. I love what they've been doing. I love what AEW's been doing with tag team wrestling in general. It's really been great.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then on Wednesday night, we had Dynamite. The first match of the night, we had Brian Cage defeating Matt Sydal. And, you could kind of call this a typical big man, little man match. That's kind of how it went to begin with. But then Sydal started getting some offense, and
offense is insane. Just like,
it really is.
And you can start off with saying it's like typical, but it's not, because the athleticism of both, Cage in itself, he is so just agile in the ring. And I think that worked really well with Matt Sydal, who can just perform phenomenally. I think there was this one where a power bomb converted into a Hurricane Rana. That blew my mind.
Crazy.
So good.
And it was just amazing, and, I love these matches where, even though we kind of knew Brian Cage was going to win, it wasn't a squash match. This was a really great match. They both had amazing spots, and I wouldn't mind seeing them work together some more, too. It was an unexpected pairing with unusually fantastic chemistry.
Yeah, and I'd be okay with seeing that on the undercard a couple more times, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. But we really want to get to the main event, the Penta versus Fenix Part 2.
Oh, boy.
Oh, my God. Match of the year. It was insane. It was so good. This is one of the most perfect TV matches I have ever seen. No exaggeration. It was just so good. The mask tearing, the package pile driver to Fenix on the apron, then a destroyer, then a double underhook into a second package pile driver for the win. This match was insane. You never had a chance to catch your breath. Penta now leads Fenix 10-7 in head-to-head matchups. But let's talk about this. We have to discuss it. As the match started, Fenix does this amazing jump over the rope, onto the second rope, jumps up. It's only occurred twice ever in competition, only been successfully done twice. Once was Mascara Dorada, who is now Grand Metalik in WWE, and once was Fenix. And so that was an amazing tribute to Mascara Dorada and reminds everybody of the rope walker that he was.
Yes.
And,
King of the ropes.
Yeah, and and then the mask ripping. They told a lot of story. I mean, they went hard into each other. When they came out, I noticed Fenix was in like a fan mask, like the ones he sells on Instagram. And I was like, that's cool. I guess he's trying to drum up his Instagram business. And I was like, no, they wanted to tear one.
That's a good eye. That's a really good eye, because I didn't quite notice. I mean, you could tell maybe the texture was a little bit more shiny and plasticky. On second glance, but I think initially no. So that's only true Lucha fans like yourself and Brendan caught that real quick.
It's the Venom mask really made it easy for me to speak, because he's more about selling those Venom masks than he is about them.
They've been a good money maker for him. And so that was what I thought, was that he's wearing it out because he sells these, and that's great. Smart marketing. Smart. But then it kind of played into the story. And the same with Pentagon. He had the kind of sequined bottom with the zebra that's very common, very similar to the Lucha Underground look that everybody likes.
I've two.
I have one, the zebra and the skulls. It's pretty amazing. And, it was so cool. And like I say, they both wore the fan masks. I thought that was like a merchandising thing, and I thought that was brilliant until it played into the story. And oh my gosh. And if you've never seen a match where they rip the masks, you've got to see this. You can see the play on the mask, the venom in it, the anger and the, it really played into it. Fenix is a very handsome man, looked like filthy animal Rey Mysterio under there with the shaved head. And
both. I think it was just a really interesting dynamic that I did not expect to see. That I think it just threw me for a loop, and in some ways made me think, why is this not on pay-per-view? Because 100%. The fact that they could have really built this up to say, in January when they have their next pay-per-view, and really built it to either some kind of a Puestas match or, grudge match, whatnot. So I'm surprised in some ways that they put this all out on TV, but also through some of the other announcements that night, we're going to get Kenny Omega and Jon Moxley on
December
TV.
2nd. Regular TV. That is a pay-per-view match.
Yeah.
And the fact that we might see a title change on TV is ridiculous. I'm hoping that it sets up, that's about a month before their pay-per-view. I'm hoping it kind of sets up a month-long feud between Moxley and Omega. But at this point, Dynamite, you've got to watch. It's become must-see TV.
Yeah.
And
yep.
Everybody on social media was talking about this match.
Yeah.
Twitter was talking about Instagram, Reddit, Facebook. Everybody was talking about the Lucha Bros, and it was seriously the match of the year for me. We've seen some really incredible matches this year, but I don't think we've seen anything this good. And like Miranda mentioned, especially on TV, as far as TV matches goes, this is about as good as it gets.
Mm-hmm. For TV, this is top notch. It stands up with a lot of pay-per-view matches.
Oh, absolutely. It's one of the best matches I've ever seen. It's so good.
Yeah, and I think it's a good blend of both actual wrestling and storytelling through, I think the whole mask ripping, and you didn't have to do a lot. I think Eddie Kingston adds to some of the drama on commentary as well.
Yeah.
Really, Penta said, boy, Penta's his best friend, and Phoenix is just all right.
Yeah.
It's all right.
And as soon as Phoenix rips the mask, Phoenix should be disqualified. Like Eddie was so good.
Yeah.
And then after the match, Pac comes out. It's kind of obvious we might be building to Penta and Eddie against Pac and Phoenix. I'm so excited about this match if they build up to it. It's obvious. Eddie Kingston's either the bravest man or the craziest man in wrestling because he didn't even flinch when Pac came at him in the ring. I would have run. There'd just been a cloud of smoke like a Scooby-Doo cartoon. You wouldn't have even seen nothing but feet hitting the floor out the door. But
that's great.
Eddie was brave, and I loved that. Loved it, and that the refs, he was still willing to throw down. And I loved that. Loved the whole thing. I can't wait to see where they go with this. I don't even know how long it's been since I've been this excited about Lucha content on American TV. It's been since Lucha Underground that I felt like I've got to watch. I got to see this.
Yeah. It's been a hot minute for sure. But yeah, it was great to see that. I feel like we are going to get that pay-per-view match. January's a long way away, so I think we're going to get this tag team feud for a little bit, or maybe they're going to build to this. We'll get that tag team match for a bigger TV show.
Yeah, and then maybe singles at the pay-per-view. Yeah. That would be amazing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking is that because it's so far away, that gives them time to do the singles.
They are 1-1 against each other in AEW. Penta has 10 wins to Phoenix's 7, period. And so, they definitely need the tiebreaker match for AEW.
We gotta thank the guy at Lucha Blog for that stat, because he is the only person that has the career stats for all the luchadors.
Yes. So. He is an invaluable resource in our research each week. I don't know what I'd do without Lucha Blog. AEW in general, they have really figured out the key to the lucha thing lately, and they're doing it so intelligently and with such finesse and skill that, Penta and Phoenix went into it trying to steal the show last night, but AEW also let it steal the show. And I hope this opens the door for more Lucha Libre on TV. I hope WWE sees it and throws more Lucha at us.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I love the hybridization of Lucha that AEW does. They're not afraid to mix styles in a way that most wrestling companies, shy away from. So it'll be interesting and exciting to see what comes of all of that.
And beyond Dark and Dynamite, we also had Full Gear this past Saturday.
Yes, how can we forget Full Gear? We had Sammy and Matt Hardy at Full Gear. This was their third match, I believe, and we had that terrible match. Matt hit his head. Nobody was wanting to see the rematch. We felt the build was stunted, but they put on a surprisingly good match in the thing. Matt Hardy came back on Dynamite to kind of put over Sammy. What did you guys think of the match?
I enjoyed it. I thought it was because we needed an obvious conclusion and an end. I thought it was a very good end to them. Obviously, as a man who greatly enjoys Sammy Guevara's work, I really wanted him to win the match, but I kind of knew he probably wasn't gonna. So it was for him losing, it was as good as it could be. That's and that's no knock on the match.
No. I think that we have seen this several times, and we now also live in a world where cinematic matches are now more frequent.
Yeah.
Much more common.
That too, I think, for this match was very appropriate and needed after their previous match. but because we've had more cinematic matches this year than we've had ever. And, Matt Hardy did, build the mold for that, but we've also seen him in this match for, a few times. So there was a few different tests or twists and differences between this and some of his other cinematic matches. Mm-hmm. And it was a good way to, I think, end this particular feud with Sammy. Mm-hmm. And again, Sammy is actually a really good actor, and so
he's great.
I did think that this was also a good fit for him. But what did it blow my mind? No, but I mean, did I think it was great? Yeah, it was really solid, but it wasn't anything that kind of broke the internet or was, oh my gosh, must see.
Right. But I don't think that's what they needed this time. Sure, everybody always wants to steal the show, but this just needed to be something solid to finish the feud, and the cinematic element after the concussion issue in the last match really allowed it to be a little more over the top and physical looking without really putting, and that's kind of what I felt like they were needed to go for. So.
And the subtleties of this match were amazing. You had Hurricane coming back, Hurricane Helms. You had Gangrel. You had Senor Benjamin. You had Sammy show up in the golf cart at the beginning. The whole thing. The little details were fantastic. Private Party, were there afterwards, and they, put Sammy in the garbage can, threw it in the truck, and Senor Benjamin drove away. It was great. It wasn't, like you say, it wasn't the best cinematic match, but the details, I thought, for AEW were fantastic. It called back to a lot of fun things. There were, that meme of Leonardo DiCaprio pointing at the TV. I felt like there were several of those moments for us as fans that were really interesting and exciting, but it did also seem like a good blow-off for the feud and a good way to kind of hide Matt Hardy's injuries and weaknesses. It was a great match for me.
Yeah. I'm still really liking it. I'll watch it after I watch the Penta Fenix match. I'll probably go back and watch that again, but it's
it was.
I got to finish the.
There was a lot of great wrestling this week, especially with AEW.
True.
Like they really knew how to bring it, and they didn't do it just a little bit. They brought it completely in totos. And it was fantastic week.
And both of you participated in the Full Gear media call after the show. So, I mean, was there any kind of exclusive news, anything that really stood out to you guys as you were in that media call? Because I know sometimes, I remember the last one that they did for All Out, Tony Khan had high praise for, the Lucha Libre influence that was with the company, wanting to partner more with, with other lucha companies. And so was there anything kind of similar to that or any kind of tidbits that kind of piqued your interest?
Yeah, there was actually I did a little bit of reading between the lines, but yes, there was very much a vibe this time of people asking about collaborations, because they were talking about the collaboration with the NWA. They were talking about collaborations with that. And every time that came up, he was very gracious towards AAA and Dorian. So he very much sounds like he
really was. Continue that. Or at least, we've seen a lot more of the, AAA Mega Campeon, they said that first when Kenny came out and they're announcing all of his, thing. And I felt like that was a sign that they were trying to, reach out. I thought that his attitude and just like Brendan said, between the lines, the way he spoke about Dorian and AAA was very high praise. You could tell he thought a lot of the people in the company. And so I think that we're going to see more from them. Definitely a Triple Mania match whenever that happens, but hopefully we get a lot more in general. The Young Bucks have a history now, and AAA, the talent sharing could be huge, especially for some of the undercard guys, to let some Mexican guys come up here and work, send some American guys down there after all this COVID's over and let them work.
Yeah.
I am really excited about the possibilities with AAA.
Yeah, there's a lot of fantastic matchups that can happen once we get a little more freedom to travel back and forth. But we're almost in that headset. We can do that. We can think about it now, and it doesn't seem like it's forever away.
Very interesting. Very interesting indeed. And AEW does seem to be, we've already seen what the collaboration has done for the NWA. And, really just to bring that internationally, it seems like even working with Mexico promotions could be a much safer bet than, say, almost the pie in the sky of New Japan. I feel like that still is feeling like worlds away, where it may make more sense now, and the presence that they have with luchadors on the roster already. So that's it seems to, they're playing coy. Maybe they're not showing all their cards, but I'm sure they're looking into it. And there's also the factor of not really knowing when things will go back to, say, a regular capacity, or when they'll be able to travel again. So there's a lot of those unknowns too that seems to have an impact on, future decisions.
Yeah, I feel like that's probably the biggest reason that you would keep your cards close to the chest on this right now, because if you promise a big to-do with AAA and then everybody has to go back into lockdown over the 2 weeks the event's supposed to happen, then what do you got? Just a bunch of disappointed people, and nobody wants that.
Yeah.
Well, a big thank you to AEW for having the Lucha Central staff there.
It was exciting. Pep Carrera was also there too, so
Yes. And a summary of the media call is available on luchacentral.com, as well as the results for all of AEW, Full Gear, Dynamite, Dark. You can find that at luchacentral.com, and as well as the WWE content that Dusty mentioned earlier, that is available on luchacentral.com. And you also want to know what else is available on luchacentral.com? Well, the results from this week's NXT. And this week's show was definitely highlighted by Johnny Gargano losing the North American Championship.
Yeah, big surprise.
Gosh, I can't even remember his name. Leon.
Oh.
Yeah. Leon Ruff.
Leon Ruff, yes.
Yeah.
To Leon Ruff. So that is not Lucha related, but it is just fun to watch.
Oh, it was so cool. That's how you build a new star, too.
That's how you build a new star. And,
one in like 3 minutes. Yeah.
And Damian Priest was involved. It seems like Damian Priest is maybe Leon's biggest fan, and that's part of the plan is, who may be his next contender. Oh, could be Damian Priest, who then beats Leon in, a second to regain the North American title. So, if that happens, not surprised by anything. That is what happens. But the second match after that was Jake Atlas versus Santos Escobar for the NXT Cruiserweight Championship.
Oh, so good.
It's so good.
And this actually started earlier in the day when Jake Atlas asked the camera crew to follow him. And he was playing kind of coy, but what he was doing is he was in his car waiting for Legado de Fantasma to come out of the building, and he attacked them with a steel pipe. And pretty much Jake was egging Santos on, and
injured both Wild and Mendoza in the parking lot.
He them. Really, Joaquin Wild got the worst of it, but sure enough, Santos Escobar, I wouldn't say caved in, but accepted the challenge, and that's how we got to the match that night. And I really liked this match. For me, again, the storytelling is what I noticed more, and this one really did show how Jake Atlas was trying to really outmaneuver not only Santos, but Legado del Fantasma as a trio. So, at the beginning of the match, Santos did strike first. They ran the ropes a little bit, and then Atlas nailed a drop kick. After that, that sent Escobar outside of the ring, which is usually a safe zone, but Jake Atlas brought him back in. And then from there, you had a lot of back and forth between Escobar and Atlas through this first part of the match, to the point where Atlas then really beat Escobar into the corner. And that's when things got interesting, because once that was happening, Joaquin Wilde and Raul Mendoza come up and try to utilize that numbers game on Jake Atlas. And they have a steel pipe of their own. However, Atlas fights back and ends up taking the steel pipe from them and attacks all of them. And he ended up taking the fight outside of the ring, but being able to come back in. Landed a really good blockbuster and went for the pin, but Escobar kicked out. And then really again, Legado del Fantasma retreat. They all go outside of the ring and kind of regroup. However, from that though, the shenanigans still continue, to the point where the referee throws out Joaquin and Raul out of ringside. So you truly then get a one-on-one between Santos and Jake Atlas. The aggression in Jake was really, really outstanding. Even though Santos, still had control for a good portion of the match, you really tried. I mean, Jake came at this, at every angle that he could. And
he was so aggressive.
Yeah, he was so aggressive, but also between the lead pipe and the issues with Joaquin and Raul, and just trying to leverage what he could throughout the rest of the match. At one point, you think he's going to win, because all of the factors that usually play a role in Escobar retaining, well, they were out. However, at the end of the match, Atlas was trying to go, he went to the top rope for a cartwheel DDT. However, Escobar blocked it and ended up nailing his finishing maneuver for the pin and to retain. So the match itself was very interesting, and I think really a really great pace. Really, like I said, I thought Jake had figured it out. I think he had all the key elements.
Yeah, he came as close as anybody could, because to your point, he neutralized that outside game where Legado del Fantasma is untouchable, and then he tried to wrestle Santos in the middle of the ring. Unfortunately, the Santos Escobar is still a world-class wrestler, so that is...
he was just too much for him. Yeah.
And again, Atlas is a West Coast product, and so very familiar with Lucha Libre style. Escobar, is Lucha Libre, so that was something that was played up in commentary a lot as well, and really how he's just a world-class luchador. So it does seem like this is the end, though, of the program between Jake Atlas and Santos Escobar.
I just want to, because while I was researching another story, I want to bring this up. Atlas is still listed as an instructor at the Santino Brothers Academy. So he is very definitely very lucha-oriented if he's hanging out at the Santino Brothers Academy. We talked about this, I believe, last week, where they have a strong lucha teaching there. It's not just that he went to the West Coast. He's in the middle of a school, so that's why I was looking forward to this match even more when I saw that.
Very true. So we will see what happens next. It is very possible that they continue this, but Santos got the clean pin, so it does leave, fans to question what is next. But I think they've done a great job with this program and Jake Atlas. I think that he's looked fantastic throughout this, and Legado still looks amazing as a trio, even though Jake tried to one-up them through some of his tactics. They still are a strong trio, so it will be very interesting to see what comes through for Legado next. Another interesting thing that happened was we were supposed to get Xia Li versus Raquel Gonzalez.
Yes!
However,
I love this so much.
Xia Li's associate Boa came out and explained that there was not going to be a match tonight. And Raquel Gonzalez did not take too kindly to that. And ended up just beating the living lights out of Boa. Which I love.
So good.
I love.
Yeah.
She had him up for a delayed suplex. I mean, like,
that,
you name it.
Slam bomb,
yeah.
like,
yeah.
Just very, I loved this session, and Raquel is the perfect person to do this.
Oh yeah.
So I'm still trying to figure out what is this Xia Li storyline coming to, then, Boa gets beat up and, another gentleman comes out to hand him a letter and leaves this mark on him that freaks him out. So there's definitely something that they're doing there. But, again, this was, I think, a great utilization of Raquel Gonzalez. I mean, brute strength.
Yeah. Oh my gosh,
predictable.
Yes. That one-armed power.
Loved it so.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Boa is not a small guy.
No.
So
no.
He's a grown man. He's a grown man that got beat up by a grown woman.
Yeah, she's a legit badass, though. There's no shame in that.
And that's
like, I wouldn't be ashamed. I'd be like, the better man won.
That is 100% why I loved this, because typically anything in the WWE shies away from the intergender stuff at all, and letting Raquel go to cut loose on a legitimate talent. Like, he's not a slouch.
No.
Just having her work him over just was magical. It really put her at another level, and I'm all on board with that. It makes it so that we have some more build up to the Xia Li match.
Yes.
We still have time to look forward to a rematch with why did her name just shoot out of my head?
Rhea Ripley.
With Rhea Ripley.
Yeah.
Well, that's the match a lot of us want, but we got to get back there. So, like, making her look good and powerful makes people hungry for that match again. So I was just so excited to see that. Like, as much as I loved the Legado de Fantasma match, coming out of that, the thing that I was buzzing about was this 3-minute spot right there. That was, it just chills watching that, and I'm just so excited.
We also had a really more, I wouldn't say sentimental, but a more intense segment from Shotzi Blackheart, calling out Candice LeRae, who ran over her tank last week. Shotzi explained how important it was to her, and how it was also a symbol of her brother's service. We did see Shotzi Blackheart versus Candice LeRae in a match. However, the big reveal here was that we did find out who was behind the ghost face killer mask, which is Indy Hartwell, who, isn't that surprising.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of surprising, because in the sense that when we first saw this person in a mask, it was obviously a dude. And now it's not a dude, so that's fine. But it's
tall, though.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like she's taller than the actual person that was in that mask.
I think she is, because it was like Gargano size. They want us to kind of think it was Gargano, you know, and
So, anyways, Candice LeRae continuing with her tactics, and Shotzi having a loss, but it seems like we're going to continue this program with Shotzi versus Candice LeRae, and I think it's great for Shotzi. I mean, she's just a great babyface.
She is,
and so these
good.
types of matches for her and programs are only going to help, fans just get to love her even more. And I think fans do truly like her and love her. And so, the more programs that she's in, she's going to just continue to get, just that fandom built up. So, overall great episode of NXT. However, hold on. I was still part. some news coming out of the NXT roster, and this is more mainly on social media speculation, but Karrion Kross has been teasing a return to WWE. I mean, he was injured earlier this fall, right after he won the NXT Championship. He's been recovering since, but both him and Scarlett have been teasing his return.
Yes.
We thought that, NXT was going to reveal possibly his return this week, but it was Finn Balor's return that they announced. So, this could be Karrion Kross just, putting that out there himself with no confirmation from WWE, or this could also be a story. Who knows? But Karrion seems to be fairly adamant that he's coming to the ring sooner than maybe a lot of fans expected.
I look forward to it.
Yes, I would not be mad at a Finn Balor Karrion Kross program. Not one bit.
No. Yeah,
Nope.
that's money in the bank. Well, no pun intended, but yeah, I mean, like I would spend money to see that kind of match. That's exciting to me.
I was about to say, I'd be mad at all the money that I spent trying to get that match. Like, what do I need to do?
What do we need to do to get this match, NXT?
That's the only way I'd be mad, because I'd be broke, but I'd be happy.
Isn't that really what it is? Happiness. That matters. So up next, though, we're going to be jumping into MLW. The restart is happening next week, November 18th. So by the time we record this show next week, we will have some fresh MLW matches to review and to talk about. However, this week, MLW continues to announce names for the restart. One of the notable names that they announced is TJP. And this is very interesting because he is currently working with Impact Wrestling, which we will talk about a little bit later on. But also, I mean, someone who seems to blend in very well with the MLW roster. I mean, they really do have a diverse group of wrestlers, from brawlers to luchadors to strong style to everything. So I think it's only going to up the fantastic quality of matches that we will be seeing with MLW. But I mean, yeah, they continue to stack, their roster up and really announce some great names for the restart.
Yeah, we've talked about it. I'm super excited about MLW's constant use of that. They named their show Fusion because they were fusing all the styles together. They're putting luchadors front and center in this restart brand, so there's going to be something good there. Yeah, you can look forward to us talking about MLW stuff for all the weeks to come. It's on Wednesday. It's on YouTube, so It may be a little hard for some people to catch it, but we will always have results for you if you if you need the little tip on what's going to be good.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and we will conquer and divide. So that's our mission as part of this trio. We will watch all of the wrestling and lucha for you. You could come back here and get all of your news. But the replay will be happening on Saturdays on BN Sports if you're already too busy on Wednesdays. But again, it's going to be on YouTube, so that's a really big plus. If you don't have access to either USA or TNT, you can watch MLW for free on YouTube.
Heck yeah, that's how I'm going to do it.
Yes, and the restart again begins next Wednesday, November 18th, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, so make sure you check it out. And up next, though, Dusty has some AAA news to share.
Yeah, we had a lot of exciting news in AAA this week. A couple of big announcements. The first announcement was Io del Vikingo. He's, on his way back. His, taking a year off to spend time with his baby apparently was just a story. It's looking less and less.
He said it in an interview. What else can I do?
You're just literally from straight the man's mouth. But he spent enough time with the baby.
Yeah.
Like, let's be real, the baby's fine. He's like, okay, the baby's great. Let's go back to Lucha.
Yeah, let's get back to wrestling. He's already back to training. Says he wants to appear at Triple Mania. So hopefully, it hasn't been a whole lot of time off. So hopefully it's not enough that he can't shake off the rust and see us at Triple Mania. We all love Io del Vikingo. Like, that's our guy. And so anything that brings him to the ring and onto my TV is something that I will support. So I'm excited about this. And then AAA also released a teaser video this week for the Marvel Lucha Libre character Leyenda America, based on Captain America. Again, he's a face, a Technico, which is kind of unusual for an American hero like Captain America in Mexico. So it's exciting to see what will play out for that story-wise. It's pretty safe to assume that we'll get one of these video vignettes for all 4 debuting characters. And as of yet, it's unknown who's wrestling under the mask or if they'll continue to stay unknown in the tradition of masked wrestlers. Guessing from what we see in the video, like trying to guess who they are, will not help because Cubs fan is reporting that it's extremely unlikely that whoever's under the masks will be related to who wrestles under the mask. That they've got one person for the video, another will be in the ring. So that's kind of exciting. The believed date for Triple Mania is roughly 3 weeks away from this weekend, but it kind of seems a little unlikely with a crowd, especially if they want to do a crowd in Arena Mexico City.
So, this is where the Mexico City being orange comes in, because in order to get to green, which is what they would need to have a full capacity show, they'd need to be at yellow for 3 weeks, for 3 sessions, and it's every other week is when they estimate at this point. So they had to go to yellow last Friday in order to potentially be at green. So the best they can do at this point is yellow for that December 5th date.
Yeah, and like I say, it's looking more and more unlikely all the time. I would love to see them get it together. I don't think that Triple Mania necessarily needs fans. We had WrestleMania with no fans. We had SummerSlam with no fans. Mm-hmm. We had so many different events, and we had the Anniversario show. So, I, don't know that we necessarily need fans for Triple Mania to happen, as long as they bring the matches. But AAA's kind of dynamic is run on live shows. That's where they make their money. They don't make money on TV. And so it's kind of interesting. And they've said they don't want to have it without fans. So.
Mm-hmm. That's the big one, is there, even though you and I are like, no, that's fine. We would love to see Triple Mania with no fans. You can totally make it rock. Like they want fans, and it sounds like they even want more fans than they can get at the Auto Luchas, which was what I was thinking would be a great compromise. But
yeah, that's what I thought too. I kind of thought that might be where it was headed, was an Auto Lucha's Triple Mania, or some kind of outdoor Triple Mania. But they seem pretty set to have it in the usual venue. So we'll see what happens.
We've got a few weeks before, so I expect that because they know they can't get to green, they're having a lot of meetings right now, and we'll probably hear a major announcement in the next week or two.
That's exactly what I was expecting. Yeah. Sometime in the middle of next week, I think we'll probably.
Yeah.
And, speaking of events that are happening in early December, switching from Mexico over to Japan, we got New Japan news. And the Super J Cup, we had the opening round matches announced. Clark Connors versus Chris Bay, ACH versus TJP, Ray Orders versus Blake Christian, and El Fantasmo versus Leo Rush. This year's Super J Cup is a single elimination 8-man tournament. It's going to take place live on December 12th, streaming on New Japan World. And New Japan has also announced the first round matchups for the Best of the Super Juniors. And an additional Super J Cup news, there will be a non-tournament match featuring Carl Fredericks and Ren Narita versus Kenta and Hikuleo. So, big card there. And in even bigger news, we had more exciting New Japan news. At Power Struggle, Tetsuya Naito, I always call him Naito. Hopefully I didn't butcher his first name too badly. He won both championships from Evil at Power Struggle on November 7th.
Yeah.
He's the leader of Los Ingobernables de Japón. He set up a title match between Naito and Kota Ibushi on the first night of Wrestle Kingdom 2021. But this sets up an interesting scenario. We know Dragon Lee was recently in Tokyo and had to go home. Andrade and Rush are having contract expirations. And I think we need to keep an eye on the Ingobernables. Rumors, that going around that they all have an interest in Japan. Rush was kind of previously against Japan, but I guess he's opening his eyes to it simply from a financial standpoint because they can throw crazy amounts of money at them compared to what they've been getting. At least that's the rumor. And so we, may see some really exciting lucha action. Hopefully we get an Ingobernables run in at Wrestle Kingdom. I would be so excited for that.
Oh, yeah. Man. That would just make my year at that point.
And so, a lot of exciting news for lucha fans on many international fronts, and hopefully it kind of, snowballs and we pick up with more news every week.
Yeah, I'm hoping.
Yeah, it does seem like things are starting to come together, even little by little. So, and you can find all that news here on the Lucha Central Weekly podcast. And also what you can find on the Lucha Central Weekly podcast is This Week in Lucha Libre History.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, that's right. It's, it's time. It's time for This Week in Lucha Libre History. Be sure to check in at luchacentral.com every single day. We have This Day in Lucha Libre by Pep Carrera. And there's information, there's birth dates, there's anniversaries, there's match of the day videos, there's historical videos, everything, anything you could want. And it's all about Lucha Libre. And that's at luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre. This week, we're kind of doing a special version of This Week in Lucha Libre that's being dedicated to Eddie Guerrero. He passed away 15 years ago this week at the age of 38. If you've paid attention, we all love Eddie, and we were kind of building to this each week. Eddie passed away. He had notoriously had issues with drugs and alcohol earlier in his career. Those were kind of the rumors, but he was in his 4th year of sobriety when he passed away from a previously undiagnosed heart condition. And he passed away in Minneapolis, Minnesota on November 13th, 2005. He got started in the business early. He's Gory Guerrero's son, and Gory booked the El Paso territory. So he knew a lot of wrestlers, was wrestling his whole life. He wrestled the collegiate style in school. He got a scholarship to New Mexico Highlands University and went to school there on wrestling style, or collegiate style wrestling. And then he went on to study Lucha Libre in Mexico. He spent his first 5 years in the business with Consejo Mundial de Lucha Libre, CMLL, and he was under the mask as Mascara Magica before leaving to join AAA at its founding in 1992. Eddie spent 2 years with the company where he became one of the most hated tag teams in Lucha Libre history as one half of the La Parrilla del Terror alongside Art Barr. In 93, he started his legendary run as Black Tiger 2 for New Japan Wrestling, and then later appeared in ECW before signing to WCW, as many AAA talents had. His matches with Rey Mysterio and Chris Benoit throughout the world had started to become legendary, and Eddie was, kind of being held down in WCW. So he teamed up with Chris Benoit, Dean Malenko, and Perry Saturn. They jumped ship to WWE in January 2000. He almost immediately teamed with his Mamacita Chyna for a run as a European champion. This was the run where he had his famous entrance at Backlash, arriving in the 57 Chevy, and he went ahead and wrestled in his tuxedo pants and bow tie. If you haven't seen that, you've absolutely got to check out that match. In late November 2001, Eddie would leave WWE due to his substance abuse issues, but it was kind of an awakening call as soon as he was, let go from WWE, and he immediately started cleaning up. He showed up to wrestle in New Japan. He showed up in Australia to wrestle for WWA. He had the famous IWA title match, 3-way against Rey Mysterio and CM Punk. He was all over the Indian international scene, kind of rebuilt his reputation and his name extremely rapidly. And then he was soon back in the WWE. He formed Los Guerreros with his nephew Chavo. After a couple years, Eddie was back to being a singles competitor. And finally, in February 2004, he beat Brock freaking Lesnar at No Way Out, and Eddie became the WWE champion. He had an incredible and memorable 6-month run until he lost to Kurt Angle at SummerSlam 2004. And after this, that's when he had what's probably his most memorable storyline, the paternity of Dominic Mysterio. I mean, it was amazing if you were there. It carried on for a while. Eddie finally lost to Rey in a ladder match over Dominic's custody, but then he beat Rey to win the feud in a steel cage match on SmackDown. He wrestled his last match on the November 11th SmackDown, defeating Mr. Kennedy by disqualification, using his signature lie, cheat, and steal tactics, which allowed him to advance to the SmackDown Survivor Series team. He was scheduled to win a triple threat title match for the World Heavyweight title on SmackDown at the time of his death. Eddie wrestled pretty much everybody who was important at the time and went on to become important, and he influenced pretty much everybody who's now important. And he's generally just regarded as one of the greatest ring performers of all time, and his loss is still felt today. We still see Vicky Guerrero in AEW. We see Shul Guerrero also in AEW. So it's really cool to see the continuation. We see a lot of people. Rey Mysterio does the frog splash. Montez Ford does the frog splash. Sasha Banks has been extremely vocal about Eddie's influence on her wrestling style. Bayley has been vocal about Eddie's influence. He's more important to Lucha Libre and wrestling than we can state in this little short amount of time. But do yourself a favor if you haven't. Check out everything you can on Eddie Guerrero. He's one of the strongest legends in our sport. Brendan, you had talked about a specific Eddie Guerrero match this week.
Well, so yeah, this week was kind of the payoff of our previous weeks. This was the return match from the Halloween Havoc match. So this week I'm going to do it formally. I'm going to do it the way we're supposed to. The way we all agreed on. This week I chose November 10th, 1997, where Eddie Guerrero won the WCW Cruiserweight Championship for the second time after beating Rey Mysterio at a taping of WCW Monday Nitro in the Mid-South Coliseum. As I mentioned previously, this was the rematch. We had talked about we'd alluded to this before when we were talking about the Halloween Havoc match. This picked up right where that left off. The clip that I was given of this, there was no hesitation. They just started, and they started with that explosive speed, and they just went into it. It was just under 7 minutes total, but you did not feel like you were cheated out of a match. You felt like you got a good match. You got a lot of things going on with this. Rey Mysterio was in charge for most of the match. He was doing a lot of innovative high-flying offense. He was flying all around the ring. Eddie got a little bit of an edge after near the end, and was able to hit a cradle and hit and win the championship. And rewatching this, I recaptured the exact same emotion that I had before, where I was watching this going, this is great. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this is going to play out. And then instead of getting like a long Eddie Guerrero build back up, he just quickly wins it. And you're just kind of stunned, which was, fantastic. So like, I used to think this was bad storytelling, but the more I looked at it, the more I'm like, no, we've seen the big long matches. We've seen the epic things they did. Mm-hmm. The way to get the crowd reinvested in that is to just have like Rey taking over and being in charge, and then just having Eddie win. He didn't even cheat. He just kind of got a good move in and won, and that just so you wanted to see more of that match, but at the same time you were satisfied with that win, and you wanted the rematch at some point, which I don't believe we ever got, but it was surprisingly good storytelling for what I remembered. Like, I'm not gonna, WCW wasn't doing bad stories at the time. It just
no, that was when they were at their peak. Yeah, I mean, this was when Nitro was must-watch TV, and these guys were part of the reason. Like, you couldn't miss the beginning because you had to see the cruiserweights.
Mm-hmm. You had to. Like, no, like I said before, this was the part where I was in the room watching while everybody else was out getting snacks, and which again led to me being disappointed because I couldn't even express to my friends how upset I was that Rey Mysterio lost the title. And then never really got that rematch. I do remember that it did, because Eddie moved on to a different feud really quickly.
And they never wrestled against each other for the cruiserweight title again. Yeah. Pretty wild.
They did. I mean, I don't think they even worked. They worked a bit more programming, but it wasn't. They didn't do a lot more one-on-one in WCW. It wasn't.
No, they were mostly affiliated and teamed up by that point.
Yeah.
The LWO and Filthy Animals.
Exactly. And they're still on the opposite side of that story a lot. But, it was, so, I saw that and I wanted to talk about that since, Miranda and I had talked about it before. And speaking of that, Miranda, what do you got for us this week?
Yes. So I picked, November 14th, 2005. And that's when WWE held the Raw Eddie Guerrero tribute show, at the Target Center in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And during this show, the main event was John Cena defeating Randy Orton. And, that, leaves in my mind because that is, that iconic image at the end of the show, when John Cena took off his shirt. Everyone that night was wearing, the I'm Your Papi, Eddie Guerrero shirt. And so he was wearing that, and he took that shirt off, and put it in the middle of the ring. He was WWE champion at the time and left the title, on top of the shirt in the middle of the ring and left it in the ring. And that's one of the most iconic moments of the entire show.
Mm-hmm.
But,
it really is.
I picked this because for me personally, it was, this was the show that brought me back to wrestling for quite some time. I grew up watching this in the 90s, in the late 90s, and ended up having kind of just a break from wrestling, because I was in high school and it wasn't interesting to me anymore. So I was in my early year of college, my first year of college actually, when the news broke. It was really Monday morning when I first found out about it, and it shook me because I remember watching Eddie on WCW, and even some of the time that he spent in WWE. And for me, it was that moment of, when someone you watched growing up passes away, it brings back and floods back so many memories and thoughts. And I knew I needed to watch that show. I knew I needed to watch that memorial show. And so I did. And just seeing everyone up on the top of the ramp at the beginning of the show, the 10-bell salute, everything. It just was very emotional as a fan to see that, because really the last time I remember seeing something like that was when Owen passed away. And that, as a kid, I remember clearly and distinctly, but it was something you just knew that you were almost in some odd way watching history, watching something you don't think you would really ever see again, and knowing that the whole show that night was going to be dedicated to Eddie and the tributes and everything. I really wanted to show my respect to him and to the wrestlers and just to wrestling. And it brought back so many memories as to why I loved wrestling as a kid and why it was so important to me. And it wasn't just, the funny stuff. It was the great matches. It was the heart and soul that you saw project through that screen. And it really rehooked me again to the point where I don't think I'd be here today doing this if it wasn't for that moment in time that reconnected me to wrestling. So the show itself, now that we look back at it, wasn't anything super memorable as far as some of the matches. We did have Simon Dean, being defeated by Eugene, Ric Flair defeating William Regal, which too is kind of strange to think about Ric Flair in a ring like that. Melina won a Divas Battle Royale after defeating Jillian Hall, Christy Hemme, Candice Michelle, Maria, Mickie James, Trish Stratus, and Ashley Massaro, which that too is very interesting to think about, the Divas division versus the women's division now. And even having people like Mickie James and Trish Stratus in there, still legends and still their names just resonate with you. But that was part of the show. Kurt Angle defeating Shelton Benjamin, Rey Mysterio, of course, on the show defeating Shawn Michaels and how emotional that was, and Kane and Big Show defeating Johnny Nitro and Joey Mercury. So the show itself, you really don't remember the matches, and it really wasn't about the matches, but it was just about everyone having the opportunity to share their thoughts, their feelings, all of that. And for me personally, it was a huge moment that brought me back to wrestling as a fan. And, it's almost a sadness that's associated. You don't want that to be the reason. You want it to be a great match. You want it to be a funny promo. You want it to, something that breaks the internet, not someone's death. But I do think that, as Dusty mentioned too, his influence was felt and has been felt throughout the wrestling world.
Yeah. It cannot be understated. He might be one of the most influential modern wrestlers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's very safe to say.
And your point about that week being historic, like I had a similar experience. I had friends who had not been watching wrestling, and I told them about that, and we all got together and watched that show. Like I was the only one regularly watching the product at that point, but I had a room full of people who needed to see that show because they all knew that was something special. So
it really was, and ultimately too. I mean, not only the influence, it has its place in wrestling history. We know what happened with Chris Benoit after that, and that being a catalyst. I mean, that itself. But also just the positive influence he had on other wrestlers to this day.
And everybody that knew Eddie had something amazing to say about him. You never hear anything bad about Eddie. Everybody loved Eddie. And that influence and that camaraderie and the influence that he had over not just the people that were coming up in the next generation, but over his peers is incredible. Most people don't enjoy that in their lifetime.
Yes. And, as we were discussing this earlier in the week, I say, speaking of memes, I've seen this meme pretty frequently. And there's two people, it seems like, in especially Mexican culture, but I think in Latino culture, that you do not mess with and are idols. And that's Selena and Eddie Guerrero.
Yes.
Yep.
And I feel that's true. That's why the whole Randy Orton angle left such a bad taste in my mouth. To this day, I don't really care for Randy Orton, and that's like,
yes, I feel the same way.
That is years gone, and I understand, everyone got the permission, he was doing his job, but the fact that to this day, I do not like Randy Orton because of what he did, and the way that he insulted Eddie's legacy. Never will I forgive him. Never ever will I forgive him for that. And
it felt so personal.
It just did, because ultimately that is just what happens in Latin culture too. You honor those who pass away, and you don't speak ill of the dead. Like that is just a fact. You just do not do it. And the fact that how beloved he is and was, especially at that time, and how fresh it was. It still works me sometimes, but at the same time, I mean, I believe it when they said that he probably would have approved it. He probably, was on board with that.
Well, yeah, I don't know. So, but it's still, to me, it's different. If he'd been around to approve it, that's one thing, but he wasn't.
Exactly.
So I'm still.
That's why it's still, but. You know what? That's all right. And I do think, again, this was a very cool opportunity for us as our own trio to discuss different points of Eddie's life and celebration of his life and the impact that he had on pro wrestling and lucha libre, the influence that is still felt to this day and will be felt for the existence of wrestling. For as long as pro wrestling exists, as long as lucha libre exists, Eddie's legacy and his career is going to be remembered, and it's a beautiful thing. So I'm glad we got to do this as our This Week in Lucha Libre history.
Yes, yeah, special.
So on top of this day in Lucha Libre history, which you can find on luchacentral.com, there's some other amazing things that you can find on luchacentral.com. Brendan, why don't you tell us a little bit more?
All right. So if you're listening to this and you haven't been to luchacentral.com after we've done all of this mentioning of it, it's time to do it. LuchaCentral.com is the online home for Lucha Libre, where you can get all the top news in English and in Spanish, which is how I'm learning my Spanish right now. Find the best curated video content and original content not seen anywhere else. Find when Lucha Libre events would be happening in your area. Find photo galleries from top photographers covering Lucha Libre around the world. It's a place to have your voices heard, from weekly polls to annual awards seen and read by top executives and all of the major Lucha Libre promotions across the globe. And, guys, it's free. So you really should go there. LuchaCentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre.
Now, we've talked about this individual several times already on tonight's podcast, and we're going to do it one more time because we're going to be doing a review of Impact Wrestling. This week on Impact on Access TV, Rohit Raju defended the X Division Championship against TJP. And this was, I guess you could call it a apuestas match, because this also had a stipulation writing on it that if TJP did not win, he was not going to challenge Rohit Raju for the X Division Championship again. And sure enough, Rohit Raju won, still with some trickery up his sleeve. And so TJP will no longer be able to challenge Rohit Raju for the X Division Championship. The match itself was very entertaining. Again, Rohit Raju is very talented. He's a great wrestler. And so that, though, does seem to fall to deaf's ears when, he keeps cheating to win. However, this was a stipulation that TJP had set himself up the week prior. So now we will no longer see TJP in the X Division title picture. However, we were joking, look, TJP may not be in the title picture. However, that could mean someone else that TJP is associated with or is known to maybe talk to or dress as, i.e. Suicide may be eligible for this because, well, why not? Suicide TV not that long, so, who knows? But
exciting.
That too.
I
And it
love
could be
that idea.
a way to write off TJP for a while, as we've noted. He's going to be seen in New Japan. He's going to be seen on MLW. So maybe he is actually going to be taking a break from Impact for a little bit. It's been well known that those working for Impact do have flexibility to work with other promotions. At this big scale, it hasn't been done. The only other person we see, Chris Bay, is part of New Japan's tournament. So that's really the only other name on Impact's roster with that big presence. But, you'll continue to see TJP on your television sets for quite some time. But at least for now, he's not going to be challenging for the X Division title.
I'm hoping we'll get to see Manic.
Yeah, you don't know. I mean, maybe he works on trying to get the title off of Rohit, so that way he has a shot again. Who knows where this angle is
it could go so many ways, and that's the beauty of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Now, also happening this Saturday, Impact Wrestling presents Turning Point, that is exclusive on the Impact Plus app. And on there, it's a full card that's actually very interesting, I think. And I'll go over a few matches, but a few for sure that if you are a Lucha fan, you'll want to watch. Of course, as we've been talking about the X Division, we're going to have another Defeat Rohit challenge, which is an open challenge that he lays out. So again, that's maybe where Manic comes in, maybe Suicide. Who knows who's going to come out? But we will see. Eddie Edwards versus Daivari, Brian Myers versus Swoggle in a match, which is fairly interesting. The North versus the Good Brothers for the Impact Tag Team Championships. Su Yung versus Deonna Purrazzo in a no DQ match for the Knockouts Championship. Rich Swann versus Sami Callihan for the Impact World Championship. And Team Triple XL versus Chris Sabin and James Storm in a tag match. But if you are a Lucha fan, these are two matches you may want to keep an eye out for. First off is Moose is going to be facing Willie Mack. Moose has had a change in demeanor since he beat EC3 at Bound for Glory, and he's been taking it out on Willie Mack. And, Willie Mack, though, he does not play. So he's been up for the challenge for Moose. So this is, two big men who are also really athletic and agile. Like, that's going to be fairly interesting to watch. And again, Willie Mack I have not seen him had a bad match with anybody on the Impact roster. So I foresee this being something that fans will enjoy. And also in tag team action, we have the team of Rosemary and Taya Valkyrie versus Tennille Dashwood and Jordan Grace. So this is a little bit of a teaser for the Knockouts Championship tournament that's going to be starting fairly soon. Taya and Rosemary, of course you knew was going to be a tag team. However, Tennille Dashwood and Jordan Grace is kind of a newer team. Just put together this past week. So Ty and Rosemary work so well together. Their dynamic is really fun to watch on TV.
Yeah.
And it translates very well in the ring. So, and again, the Knockouts Tag Team title tournament will be starting soon, I believe next week on Impact on Access TV, leading up to the finals happening at Turning Point. Not Turning Point, that's what's Saturday, at Hard to Kill in January. So, keep an eye out. I could foresee Taya and Rosemary really progressing far in the Knockouts Tag Team tournament.
Absolutely.
And also a quick plug, Taya, her winter collection of Loca by Taya Valkyrie was just released. So if you're looking for some good sweats, additional masks, and just face masks, not lucha masks, you can go to Loca by Taya Valkyrie to pick up some great new swag and gear.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to finish off tonight's show, Brendan, you have some news for us from Primetime Live this week.
All right. Yeah, so it wasn't an exceptionally lucha-centric episode, but, the tournament has been going on, so I'm going to start there. In the opening match, you had Chris Dickinson defeating Fred Rosser to advance in the tournament, and then I'm going to skip ahead here. You had, at the end of the show, you had Mike Bennett and Sean Daivari in the match, and Mike Bennett managed to go on, so we are looking at the tournament is kind of shaping up in that respect. But we also had a match with Lacey Ryan and Vipress, who we've talked about a few times on the show. Vipress has kind of been, she's been around the Lucha area, and we enjoy watching the matches. This was a fun match. Sorry, I'm being distracted by silly messages.
Silly. This is a proper podcast, all right? We're professionals, damn.
My podcasting teammates are the only ones able to talk to me, and they're making me giggle right now. So just make of that what you will.
Sounds like a you problem, Brendan. I don't know about that.
Oh yeah, so this was Lacey Ryan and Vipers was a fun match. Of course, Lacey Ryan came out on top based on the positioning. That would make sense. She was coming in defending the FSW Women's Championship. Very entertaining match. The match that I saved for last, even though it was kind of on the undercard, is kind of the one that our Lucha Central podcast team had the most emotional investment in, which was the Real Money Brothers, and we're scheduled to have a match with 4 minutes of heat. So I see what you did there just now. And then it turned into a 6-man match with the Real Money Brothers adding Cam, and 4 minutes of heat adding Will Alday. And, my team came up a little short on this one, but, it was a fun match. It was a lot of fun.
R&B, get money, you know. Yeah. That's just how we do. The R&B are my boy. I'm so just excited and thrilled for them. But you know what? On the opposing team, Will Alday is fantastic. So you know that's and so that too, that kind of threw for a loop. But yes, this is West Coast Wrestling Connection out here. When we see, you know, people that we know that we're invested in, and especially 2 tag teams like this, you know, that we both know, like it definitely causes some friendly rivalries.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm excited that the 4 minutes of heat got to wear the Defy belts out to the ring, and they repeatedly mentioned that they were Defy tag team champions. That is one of our Seattle promotions here, so I'm hoping that means that we see them defending the Defy belts at some point.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of the United Wrestling Network. You mentioned already that, you know, Lacey Ryan defended the FSW Future Stars of Wrestling Women's Championship. And that's a promotion that United Wrestling Network is working with. Of course, you know, they've had the NWA belts listed on there, and now it seems like the door could be open for other promotions to have their belts at least not just seen, but possibly even defended on the show. So
yeah, absolutely. Very exciting. Again, not a super strong lucha week, but I'm sure we'll see more of Miranda Alizé in future, and some of the other lucha talents that it is a West Coast based promotion, so it's super easy for them to grab a West Coast based guy or two. I would not be surprised to see Mysterio pop up on one of these upcoming episodes.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah. I'm just gonna throw that out there, because if they hear this, maybe they'll get the idea and do it.
Yeah.
I hope so. I'd love to give them that idea.
Great. Well, that is it for this week's Lucha Central Weekly podcast. Thank you all so much for listening. Don't forget to visit luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre, and follow Lucha Central on social media. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Lucha Central and on Twitter at luchacentral.com. And of course, you gotta check out the YouTube page. There's a lot of great content on there, matches and interviews that are all available for you to view and just enjoy, reminisce, learn something new, whatever you want to do. You can find it on Lucha Central's YouTube page. And well, while you're at it, go ahead and follow us on social media. Dusty, can you let our listeners know where they can find you on social media?
I am on Instagram at Dusty Murphy, all one word. Facebook, facebook.com/Dusty Murphy. Pretty easy.
And Brendan, where can our listeners find you?
I am 321. That's the numbers 321, and then T-shirt guy spelled out. 321 T-shirt guy. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. And I'm on Twitter, which is really where I spend most of my time. So like, the fastest way to get me is always on Twitter.
And me, Miranda Morales, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at the #Miranda, hashtag spelled out. On Facebook, I am at the #Miranda, so if you do that Facebook / just type out the #Miranda and you can find me. Or you can also search for me, but there's a lot of Miranda Moraleses out there, so just go straight to the source / the #Miranda. And also while you're at it, because you know, we're all human, we spend lots of time on the internet. Make sure that you subscribe, rate, and review us.
5 stars, y'all.
5 stars. You may be listening to this on Google, on iTunes, on Speaker, on Podbay, on iHeartRadio, whatever streaming platform you are listening to this podcast on. Make sure you subscribe so you can get notifications on when this podcast drops. And then also rate and review. So a 5-star rating would be much, much appreciated. And you can leave a review. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, and maybe some topics that you think we should cover in the future. We love to hear feedback from our listeners. We always get to enjoy sharing that information, and we may be, including your name, in a future podcast. So if you want to get a special shout out, make sure you leave a comment for us either on social media or through your favorite podcast streaming platform. For Dusty Murphy and Brendan Barr, I'm Miranda Morales. Thank you all again so much for listening, and we will be back next week.